I was already seated when it started. Seatbelt latched. Tray table closed. Phone face down on my thigh. Boarding was nearly finished. The cabin had settled into that early departure stillness where conversations thin out and movements become procedural. Overhead bins closed one by one. The aisle cleared in short pulses, then paused, then cleared again. Marcus Bennett reached seat 1A last. He didn't hurry, didn't scan the room. He lifted a soft leather duffel into the bin above his seat in one smooth motion and sat down. Hoodie, dark jeans, boots worn enough to look intentional. Nothing about him asked for attention. Elaine Porter noticed anyway. She stopped beside 1A, tablet held flat against her chest, eyes flicking once to the seat number and then to Marcus. No greeting, no smile. "Excuse me, sir." Marcus opened his eyes slowly, not startled, just interrupted. "Yes? May I see your boarding pass?" He reached into his pocket and raised his phone, the screen already bright. The QR code was clear. His name was visible. Seat 1A. Elaine didn't scan it. She angled the tablet instead, as if reading, and said, "The seat assignment looks off today." Off. Not wrong, not mismatched. Just off. Behind her stood Greg Thompson, pinstripe suit. His gold watch was loose on his wrist. He leaned slightly into the aisle, close enough to claim space without touching anyone. His hand rested on the top of the 1A seat back, casual, familiar. Elaine glanced at Greg, then back to Marcus. "There may be a system mix-up," she said. "We need to correct it so the boarding can finish." Marcus looked at his phone, then at her tablet, then back at her face. "Can you scan it?" he asked. Elaine didn't answer. "Sir, we need to keep things moving," she said. "If you'll just step out for a moment." "Step out. Not move. Not relocate." Greg smiled. "Come on," he said, tapping the seat lightly with 2 fingers. "Don't make this awkward." That tap landed louder than it should have. Across the aisle, a woman paused with a champagne flute halfway to her mouth. Someone behind me stopped adjusting an air vent. The cabin didn't go silent, but it tightened. "I paid for this seat," Marcus said. "It's assigned to me." Elaine exhaled once, short and practiced. Ascendia reserves the right to reassign seating for operational reasons. Greg is one of our priority flyers. This seat is usually blocked for him. Usually. She still hadn't scanned the code. "If you don't comply," Elaine added, her voice steady, "we'll have to involve airport security. I don't want to escalate this." Marcus nodded once. "Fine," he said. "I'll step out." Elaine's shoulders loosened immediately. "Thank you," she said, already turning. "Noah, can you grab his bag?" "I'll take it," Marcus said, standing. He was taller than I expected. Not imposing, just solid. He pulled the duffel down himself and stepped into the aisle. Greg slid into 1A before the space was fully clear. "Appreciate it," Greg said, eyes on the armrest. "Some of us fly this route every week." Marcus didn't respond. He stood where 1A ended and the galley began, holding his bag at his side. Elaine tapped her tablet again. Her brow tightened. "Noah," she said, sharper now. "Hold boarding." The jet bridge stayed connected. No chime, no door movement. Marcus didn't move either. He took out his phone. Not hurried, not hidden. The screen lit up as he selected a contact. The name meant nothing to me. He didn't raise his voice. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw Elaine's tablet freeze. I saw her blink once. Then again, longer the second time. The captain's voice came over the intercom, uncertain. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've received an operational hold from corporate. Please remain seated." Greg stopped adjusting his pillow. Elaine stared at her screen too long. Noah stood near the galley with his hands held wrong, waiting for an instruction that didn't come. Marcus stayed exactly where he was, between the cabin and the galley. He didn't block anyone. He didn't speak. Nothing moved around him anymore. That was when it stopped behaving like a mistake. The cabin didn't react right away. People stayed seated. Seatbelts remained latched. A few heads turned toward the cockpit door, then back to their laps. The announcement hadn't explained anything. It hadn't needed to. The plane was no longer progressing. Elaine Porter recovered first. She straightened her shoulders and tapped her tablet again, harder this time, as if pressure might make the screen cooperate. Her thumb hovered, then stopped. She glanced toward the cockpit, then down the aisle, recalculating. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes, We're just experiencing a brief operational pause. Please remain seated. Operational pause. Not delay. No issue. No one argued. No one stood. Marcus Bennett stayed where he was, just past the end of 1A, the galley light reflecting faintly off the zipper of his duffel. He didn't lean, didn't shift his weight. His phone was back in his pocket. Elaine turned to Noah. "Go check with the flight deck," she said quietly. Noah hesitated. Just a fraction too long. Then he nodded and moved forward. The cockpit door closed behind him with a soft, final sound. Greg Thompson cleared his throat. "Elaine," he said low but sharp. "What's going on?" She didn't look at him. "We're sorting it out," she said. "Please relax." Greg glanced at the seat controls, then at the aisle, then back toward Marcus. He adjusted the pillow again, slower this time, as if the movement itself needed permission. Minutes passed. Not many. Enough to notice. The jet bridge stayed connected. Ground crew outside the window didn't wave or disconnect cables. A baggage cart stopped halfway across the tarmac and didn't move again. Elaine's tablet chimed once. A short tone. Not an alert, not a confirmation, just a system sound that didn't resolve into anything useful. She looked down. Her jaw set. "Noah?" she said, louder now. The cockpit door opened. Noah stepped out, eyes wide, then quickly neutral. He leaned in toward Elaine, speaking too softly for anyone else to hear. Whatever he said, it wasn't long. Elaine nodded once. Then again, "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice came over the intercom, steadier this time. "We are holding at the gate per instructions from operations. Please continue to remain seated. Per instruction. From operations." Elaine's tablet slipped from under her arm and landed flat against her side. She crossed her arms instead, a posture that didn't match the uniform. Greg leaned forward in his seat. "Is this about my seat?" he asked, smiling as if it were a joke. Elaine finally looked at him. "Please stay seated," she said. That smile faded. Across the aisle, someone raised their phone, then lowered it again when nothing dramatic happened. No shouting, no raised voices. Just a plane that refused to leave. Elaine turned toward Marcus. "Sir," she said, keeping her tone even, "if you're not flying, I'll need you to exit the aircraft." Marcus didn't move. "I'm fine where I am," he said. That was it. No explanation. No challenge. Elaine inhaled, held it, then released it through her nose. She tapped her earpiece once, then again. "Gate," she said quietly. "I need a supervisor on the aircraft. Now." The aisle remained clear. No footsteps approached. No one boarded. Instead, a message flashed briefly on the cabin screens, then disappeared. The seatbelt sign stayed on. Elaine noticed several passengers watching her now. Not staring, observing. She shifted her stance, angling her body to block Marcus from view, as if positioning could still control the situation. "Sir," she said again, "you are interfering with our operation." Marcus looked past her, not at her. "I issued a request," he said. It was acknowledged. Elaine froze. She opened her mouth, then closed it. From the front of the plane, footsteps sounded on the jet bridge. Faster than normal, purposeful. A man in a dark jacket appeared at the door, scanning the cabin before stepping inside. Daniel Wright, station manager. I'd seen him once before during a weather delay. He didn't smile then either. "Mr. Bennett?" Daniel said, already walking down the aisle. Elaine turned sharply. "Daniel." Daniel raised a hand without looking at her. "Hold," he said. He stopped beside Marcus. "Sir," Daniel said, lowering his voice. "Operations confirmed. We're grounding this aircraft temporarily." Elaine's tablet slipped from her hand. It hit the carpeted floor with a dull sound and stayed there. Greg sat very still. Daniel turned to Elaine. "Elaine Porter," he said, reading from his phone. "You're relieved from duty pending review. Please gather your belongings." The cabin didn't erupt. It didn't need to. Marcus stepped aside, just enough to clear the aisle. For the first time since boarding paused, something moved again. I didn't see the meeting that followed. I saw the aftermath. By the time we were back in the terminal, the gate area had changed posture. Screens refreshed without announcements. Agents stopped improvising and started following the steps again. The line reformed, not tighter, cleaner. Someone from operations arrived with a folder, not a headset. I learned the rest later. in fragments that fit together because the system made them fit. The review didn't begin with a story. It began with a log. Timestamps. Seat map states, an override was entered without a scan. The entry wasn't long. It didn't explain itself. It didn't need to. The absence of a scan was enough. The second file showed a pattern. Same seat, different dates, manual adjustments that never passed through the reader. The system had kept quiet because it had been told to. The third document was a statement. Short. Signed. No adjectives. It described a favor promised for a favor delivered. Not money. Access. That was when the room went quiet, not from shock, but from alignment. Elaine Porter was called in after the data finished speaking. She stood at the end of the table, hands clasped, uniform still on. No one raised a voice. No one needed to. Your authority to modify the manifest, the station manager said, reading, is suspended pending investigation. Elaine opened her mouth, then closed it. That decision is effective immediately, he added. There was no argument to attach to it. Greg Thompson's name appeared later, in a different chain, not as a villain, as a dependency. A frequent flyer whose requests had begun to shape outcomes. Compliance flagged it because compliance always flags patterns after they harden. His access was paused. His status was reviewed. No announcement followed. By the afternoon, the policy update went live. Every seat assignment now requires a completed scan to move forward. No exceptions. No usuals. The reader would not advance without confirmation, and the override field no longer accepted manual entries from the cabin. The fix was small. It closed a large gap. I saw Marcus Bennett again months later, by accident. Same airline. Different flight. Boarding on time. He was already at the door when I joined the line, duffel over his shoulder. Same hoodie, same pace. He scanned and stepped aside to let the next person go first. The purser someone knew looked up and smiled. Welcome aboard, Mr. Bennett. He nodded and moved down the aisle without stopping at the front. At 1A, a young soldier stood frozen, ticket in hand, eyes darting between the seat and the floor. The purser leaned in. That's yours, she said. Marcus paused behind them. Excuse me, he said just loud enough. He can take mine. The purser hesitated. Not long. Just enough to check the reader. It accepted the change and advanced on its own. Of course, she said. The soldier looked back, confused. You don't have to, he said. It's fine, Marcus replied. They have good pillows. That was the exchange. No applause, no phones lifted. Marcus continued down the aisle and sat where the numbers were higher and the space was tighter. He buckled in. He didn't look back. The doors closed. The jet bridge pulled away. The engines spooled when they were supposed to. Nothing remarkable happened after that. And that was the point. The system didn't reward him. It corrected itself. If you've been watching closely, you know why this matters. Not because of who he was, but because of what moved and what stopped moving when the rules were followed. If you've ever been in a place where the process bent around someone else, you know how small that bend can look and how wide it opens later. Tell me in the comments what you noticed first, the missed scan, the word choice, or the moment the plane refused to leave. Share this with someone who understands how quiet fixes actually work. And if you want more stories where systems reveal themselves without speeches or shortcuts, subscribe to Black CEO Tales.